Mansplaining is overly criticized.
I frequently come across videos online where like a man will respond back to a broad generalization about women, and they'll be like, oh, you're just mansplaining it, as if men aren't allowed to have a voice in the conversation. And I think that the term itself, it's just not really defined.
And mansplaining is just not real.
Yeah.
Like it literally is a man explaining something, and these people get angry about it. Like that's the reality of the times in which we live. And it hurts the ability of men to have conversations with women, because you think, oh wow, if I explain this issue to her, and I'm gonna be accused of mansplaining, or I'm gonna be accused of being sexist because I don't think she understands it. That's toxic. And it hurts women, it hurts men, and it's just not a way for us to have a functioning
And
society.
at its core, it's completely hypocritical, because the feminist plight is that women need to have a voice and they're being told they can't have a voice. And then they turn around and do the exact same thing and say, you're mansplaining me. You shouldn't have a voice about this topic because you're a man.
And we're targeted because of our identity, and no one cares about it because we're supposedly in positions of power, so we don't get to be victims. We don't get to say, oh, you should feel bad for us, because we're men, so we don't get to have the luxury of having the benefit of the doubt of society or the media or any of those things, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of mansplaining, let's look up the definition. This is the Webster's Dictionary definition of mansplaining. To explain something to a woman in a condescending way that assumes she has no knowledge about the topic. That definition is so ridiculous. It assumes, like, are women not capable of doing the same thing? This is a ridiculously sexist definition. You're placing a gender on something that both genders can do, but it's only a problem when men do it. A way to make this definition less sexist would be to explain something to a person in a condescending way that assumes they have no knowledge about the topic. What's so hard about that? It's only a problem when a man is explaining something in a condescending way. Like, the word is sexist, and the people who use it claim to be fighting against sexism.
I'm going to speak about mansplaining from a different perspective, because you guys are talking about controversial topics. I'm going to talk about it from just like a day-to-day perspective. In my relationship with my partner, how I try to be really mindful of mansplaining is when she is sharing her struggle, I think a tendency that can be conditioned in me through just how men dominate and want to have to solve problems and all that is I want to jump in and just solve it and try to explain what's happening here and try to question her experience and be like, hey, like, what did you think about this? Did you think about that? Well, I see this. That inherently in itself comes off as mansplaining, because
it's like, are women not capable of that same behavior? Why are you gendering a behavior that's so common between both genders?
as what is the counter to mansplaining is actually getting consent from the other person. How do you want to be supported? Do you want me to support you and listen to you, or do you want me to help solve problems?
It's also, mansplaining is also not just a man having an opinion. Right. That's not the situation. The idea is when a man interjects an opinion that he either is not fully educated on or does not have the appropriate empathy to be able to talk about.
When a man does it, because women never do that. That's something women are completely incapable of doing. I'm telling you, man, these people they're so biased. They're so ideologically captured that they can't even cede any ground to reality. We're feminists, we're the male feminists, and we're trying to argue that feminism is about equality for both genders, but in our actions, we're going to demonstrate that feminism is literally about man versus woman, and we're here to attack men. Their presence and conduct as male feminists is an indictment on feminism itself.
How is that different than a woman doing
that?
that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my issue.
Then feel free when a woman does that to say you're womansplaining. I don't think that
there's a reason that term doesn't exist. That's because you're not allowed to do that towards women in society.
If you did that, it would be just fine.
You just admitted it would be just fine.
I think the difference is, though, when if that were to happen to men, it wouldn't quiet our voices to being completely unheard. My wife is a physics and math teacher. If she has the answer to a question in a staff meeting, she's going to have to be louder than the men in the room, because that is the way society has conditioned people to operate, especially in male-dominated spaces. Yeah. That's what mansplaining is. I have one more question. Is it about the word?
Yeah, that's what I feel like people get hung up on, like words like mansplaining
y'all have a lot of problems with a lot of these languages.
When you say mansplaining, you have to understand that subconsciously we're already creating a divide, when really a woman can mansplain by definition the way you guys are explaining it, and that's just as wrong as if a man does it. So why is it called mansplaining? Why isn't it just disrespectful?
So when your life is not at stake, when you're not being attacked, I think you can focus on language. When you're not at risk of being...
You live in U.S., dude.
Men are attacked every single day.
Women are attacked more. Women are attacked more.
What? Men are definitely the victims of violent crime at a higher rate than women. That's not even controversial. This is research from Statista. In 2021, there were slightly more male victims of violent crime than female victims, with about 1.4 million male victims and 1.2 million female victims. There you go. Even though the wording of this article is kind of problematic, they're already trying to shape a narrative here. Slightly more. That's 200,000. There are 200,000 more males than women victimized, thereabouts. Which means males are about 8% more likely to be victimized than women. That's a statistical significance. The fact that this article is wording it like this shows you that there's an inherent slant in society. If this was the other way around, I don't think this wording would be here because it'd be problematic.
A societal standpoint, you guys talk a lot about social conditioning and how women feel uncomfortable, but don't you think this narrative that you're saying right now is contributing to that? Telling women that they should be scared when they're in an environment full of men, telling women that, they are oppressed, they are this, they're that. By telling women they're less than
Let me respond to that. They're not telling them that. They're validating the fact that that's the reality.
Right.
Innocent men suffer because of feminism.
So I think today in 2022, feminism has changed drastically, and I think it's really turned into demonizing masculinity in men while promoting masculinity in women, and with that, good men are being pushed to the wayside and pushing parts of themselves down and not embracing their own masculinity.
The fact that none of these male feminists step forward for something so easily verifiable is just, it just shows you that they're biased, they're ideologically captured, and they're intellectual juveniles. You can't even see the reality that there are innocent men that could suffer from feminism. Any movement is going to inevitably have innocent victims. Anything you try to do, there's always going to be someone innocent that suffers. Maybe they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. A simple way to word that is, do innocent people ever suffer from any sort of change? And if you can't agree to that, you're out of your mind. You have a baseline level of ignorance that you need to fix. You don't think like some dude has suffered somewhere? Any policy, bro, like any policy, even if it's in your opinion fixing a social or societal ill, is still going to have an innocent victim. Now, if you don't have the ability to manage that nuance where, hey, we could be doing something good, but even though overall it's good, there's still going to be some innocent people who suffer, but overall this is good. You lack basic common sense, or you're just captured ideologically and you're so concerned about your pet issue that you're not willing to cede ground to reality. Jubilee would be so much better with these panels if they had actual educated people rather than a bunch of loud fucking activists on both sides. You just go scour social media and the people with the most followers, you just put them together and let them scream at each other. Bullshit. There's rarely ever a middle ground.
Because it used to be equality of opportunity, and that's when I would say I would be a feminist.
But either
now
way,
it's become equality of
but
outcome.
either way, what y'all are talking about is feelings.
Right.
Y'all talking about, I don't like how women make me feel in society about crime, how women make me...
Well, the question was about
Hold on.
feelings.
Yeah. No, hold
It's
on.
about our men affected,
Hold
that's
on.
feelings.
Yeah,
So yes, that's
but
the conversation.
feminism itself is not about feeling. It's about, like you said, outcome. It's about the wage gap. It's about having access to...
Which doesn't
fucking
exist,
gap.
by the way, right? But anyways,
I let you talk. No, you didn't let me talk, though. Hold on. No, you didn't let me talk, though.
It's about feelings, right? You want to talk about how men feel, let's talk about how women feel. Let's talk about feminists.
Again, it's not about feelings, period. That's my point. It's not about feelings. It's not about feelings, period.
Other women.
Wait, can we have the prompt again?
Yeah, let's get back to the prompt because it didn't have feelings.
Exactly.
It's
Right.
about
Innocent men suffer because of
Oh, okay.
feminism.
And so can I pose this question?
But that is still about
on a
feelings.
day-by-day basis, do you think you're negatively affected by feminism?
100%.
Yeah.
And so can you explain to me how on a day-by-day
Because
basis
it makes
it's
them
affected
feel,
negatively?
because again, masculinity has this mythical eligibility of power.
Wait.
When someone, feminist, what have you, challenges that, it feels like oppression to them. So
Yeah.
it feels like
It's-
something is
it's not
being done.
challenging,
That's just
I-
my
I-
perception.
yeah.
Feel free to disagree.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what
not-
it-
If you're applying for a job and they're prioritizing women over you, even though you're more qualified, which jobs do, which there are quotas, then you've suffered because of it. We're not talking about the merits of those quotas, but if those quotas prevent you from getting a job over someone who you may be more qualified than, then that is you suffering. Why is that hard to understand? If you accept that there are quotas which have to be met in certain workplaces and institutions, then you should also accept that innocent people will suffer because of those quotas. If quotas exist, innocent people suffer. Point blank, period. This is a stupid ass discussion, and these dudes lack basic common sense.
And I'm
like
not
to me.
impressed, so I
That's what I'm
challenge
saying.
that perception. But also, too, to go back to your point about feminism, that may have been true with first wave feminism, but with third wave feminism, that is no longer
I
the
wouldn't
case
even argue
anymore.
because first wave feminism and third
Guys,
wave
bring it back to the
feminism.
prompt. And then also I love the ping ponging, but just make sure we don't have 5 people talking on top of each other.
All right. There's another side to this too. It's the patriarchy. And so that is what you are talking about. It is the pressure to be strong, the pressure to protect.
But in what ways is our society a patriarchy today? I know you said values, so I would want to get clarification on what you define a patriarchy.
So we should define patriarchy as a group, because I personally am still having a hard time defining it today, because it is
What the hell, man? These people. Whenever you ask them to define terms, they just get lost. It's like, wait, but actually, I don't know. I'm still struggling to even define it. I'm going to use this word consistently throughout this discussion, but I still can't even define it. I'm struggling. How have you modeled your worldview around something you can't even appropriately define? This is what I mean about these people being ideologically captured. They're juveniles. You speak so confidently about something that may be happening, but you can't define it. It's this nebulous concept that you can't put your hands on. There's a pretty clear definition of what a patriarchy is. Your job would be to explain now why the society we exist in today is that. Why is that hard?
Are you saying we're not in a patriarchal society?
No, I don't believe we are today. So the whole idea that our country is an oppressive patriarchy, it just really gets under my skin because nobody's able to actually tell me what that is. Well, by definition, the patriarchy would be a society where men have power over women and women don't have a voice. And in today's society, that's just not true. Obviously, some people have power over others, but in our society, that has more to do with economic status than actual sex.
So going back to the prompt, right? The prompt is innocent men feel attacked by feminists.
Suffer.
Suffer
They
from
suffer.
feminism,
Yeah,
right? So if you make a mistake, you should be held accountable to that mistake. Now with the forms of internet coming out and communication going everywhere, y'all are talking about feeling attacked for being able to say certain things or not.
Not attacked,
If you
I just
are,
think that psychologically,
It
that
does
some
suffer.
innocent men do suffer
But
from
I
the
would say they
narratives
also
that are pushed.
suffer if you're speaking about laws. I think feminism has changed a lot of laws
Like
that
what?
now all are women beneficiaries. So if you look at divorce courts, if you look at family courts, if you look at abortion, if you look at
I mean, that's just a simple fact. Like, there are laws that punish men for doing things that women can get away with.
Back to the prompt. Do innocent men suffer from feminism? I think look at with this entire Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation that happened this past year. You have all of these feminists rushing to the camp to defend Amber Heard, and then all those things come out during that trial. People are like, maybe Johnny Depp isn't the horrible guy that we thought he was, right? So that is an example of feminism radicalizing these people to just be like, I'm going to be anti-male and I'm going to go root against this guy. But to the point of the
how is Johnny Depp
Guys,
affecting
we
our
have
system?
like
He had his
30,
day
we
in
have 30
court.
seconds left on this prompt, so just finish your thought.
But yeah, but also to Brett Kavanaugh. Big example there. You have all these allegations that come up when he's going to be the Supreme Court justice that never came up before.
Right, exactly.
What did that do as far as enable people who have fake accusations to say, I'm going to ride the coattails of the Me Too movement and ruin innocent man's
Really
life?
quick though,
That
where's
is
Brett
wrong.
Kavanaugh right now? He's on the Supreme Court.
He's on the Supreme Court.
Well,
Thank God,
and
because
then
truth
Johnny
won the
Depp,
day.
is he- was he
Because truth won the
convicted of a
day.
crime?
Because truth won the day.
But that's the point.
He won in
Yeah,
spite of
there's
feminism.
a pendulum, and for a really long time, people were called out for things people weren't held accountable. So now, yeah, the pendulum's swinging. Maybe there are going to be some false accusations and stuff going too far.
And that's the prompt. The part where stuff goes too far and there's false accusations means someone suffered.